Hello dear fashion designers, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, you're welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for tuning in again. So in today's video, I'll be showing you how to draft a blouse with Bustier. Alright, so if you want to know how to draft this perfectly, then make sure that you watch to the end. So first, I've gone ahead to draft my starting line on the pattern paper, and then next I'll be marking out the length of the blouse. The length of my blouse is 23 inches, so I'm just going to mark that straight down just like this. So to continue with my horizontal lines, I'm going to mark my shoulder to nipple, which is 9.5 inches. I'll mark my under bust, which is 12.5 inches. I'll go down also and mark my waist, which is 16 inches. So I'll just use my marker to draw out straight lines just like this. When that is done, on my starting line, I'm going to mark my shoulder. Now my shoulder is 7.5 inches, but I'll be adding half inches for sewing allowance, so I'll mark 8 inches. Next, for my neckline, I'm going to mark 3.5 inches for the width, and then on the shoulder line, I'm going to go down by 0.75 inches. You can go down by 1 inch if you want to. So I'll connect that to my neckline just like this, and then for the neckline depth, I'm going to go down by 3 inches. Then I'll use my curve ruler to make a round neckline just like this. Now to create the armhole curve, I'm going to go down by 7.5 inches to create my chest line. Now how do I get that? You can get your chest line by dividing your bust measurement by 6 and then you add 1.5 inches. After doing mine, I have 7.5 inches, so I'll just go ahead to create my chest line just like this. I've gone ahead to label the horizontal lines so that we can identify them easily. On the chest line, I'm going to mark 8 inches, which is our shoulder measurement, so as to create our armhole curve. So I'll use my straight ruler to connect it down like this. Still on the chest line, I'm going to take my bust measurement, which is 9 inches, to form our armhole curve. Then I'll place my tape rule on the straight line just like this, divide what I have there by 2, and then I'll go in by half inches to create our armhole curve. So I'll use my ruler to connect it this way. After that is done, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2, which is going to be 3.75 inches. I'm going to mark that on my under bust, waist, and then to my blouse length. Afterwards, I'm going to create a straight line just like this, okay? And then for the darts, I'm going to mark half inches on the right and then 1.5 inches on the left. Half inches on the left and then 1.5 inches on the right. So I'm going to do that to the blouse length just like this, and then I'll use my ruler to connect the points together. So on the nipple area, just use your curve ruler to do what I'm doing just like this. Connect it with a curve. Then to complete our bustier, on my armhole area, I'm going to measure what I have there, and then I'll divide it by 2. So here I have about 4.25 inch, okay? So I'll just mark that just like this, and then use my curve ruler to connect it down to my nipple points like this. So still on the armhole curve, I'm going to mark half inches on both sides. Okay, then I'll use my curve ruler to connect it down to the nipple point just like this. For the second one, we are going to extend it by 1 inches. Okay, so we'll extend it like this, and I'll just use my marker to bolden it this way. That same 1 inches, we are going to extend it on the chest line where we have marked our bust, where we have taken our bust measurement. So I will add 1 inches on that part just like this, and then create a new armhole curve. We are going to still go ahead and mark our half inches, that's allowance that's been placed there, so as to have a perfect bustier at the end. On this pattern, I'll be adding sewing allowance. I'll go ahead to add 1.5 inches sewing allowance on the bust area, and then we take my waist measurement. My waist is 7 inches. I will add 2 inches for the dart allowance and also 1.5 inches for our sewing allowance. I'll do the same on the blouse length. I'll take my hip measurement, which is 9.5 inches. I will add 2 inches dart allowance and also 1.5 inches sewing allowance. So after that is done, I'm going to just go ahead to connect it together just like this. Now, to make our blouse sit well on the hip area, we need to go up by 1 inches. You can go up by 1.5 inches if you are a plus size, or 2 inches. Okay, so when you do this, it's going to make your blouse to sit well on the hip area. So when that is done, we just go ahead to cut it out just like this. And this is what we have for our front pattern. So quickly explain how we are going to go about the sewing. You just join the sides of the darts together. Make sure that you add 1/2 inch sewing allowance on your fabric, not at the sides. Okay, for the dart area, make sure that you add 1/2 inch sewing allowance or 1/4 inch, whatever that works for you. For the padding of the bustier, you can use your wording on this area. So on your nipple point, you can go up by 3 inches or 2.5 inches, and then just mark it just the same way I'm showing you, just like this. Okay, that way on this other side of the pattern, you make like a round padding with your wording. You do the same thing for the center front. Okay, I'll just show you, illustrate how the wording is going to go. But make sure that you add an air stay to your fabric, and I also advise that your wording should be on the lining instead of your fabric, depending on what you're working on. Wording used to have some kind of curvy effect on fabric over time, so to avoid this, just put your wording on your lining instead. So when that is done, you can just connect it together. I mean, join the darts together just like this. I would also advise that you take notches at the nipple area, the under bust and the waist area. This is going to make you to join the notches together at the dart area while sewing. So another very important thing is taking your darts. I'll go down by 1.5 inches to take my side dart, and I'll connect it to the nipple area just like this. This is going to make the back panel and the front panel of the sides to align together. It's very important. Okay, when doing your bustier, make sure that you also take note of the side dart. This is going to make your blouse to sit perfectly well on your hip area. So I will just remark this. Okay, that's where I illustrated the padding of the side of the cup. So that's how the wording will be on the side of your bustier. So that's it for the front. Let's move to the back pattern. Now, if you are making use of loop, there's no need for zip allowance, but if you are doing a normal bustier with zip, make sure that you take your zip allowance. So here I've marked my starting line and also my zip allowance. For my zip allowance, I used 1.5 inches. So on the starting line, I'm going to mark 8 inches just like we did at the front, and then for my neckline width, I'm going to make use of 3.5 inches. I'll just mark that just like this, and then at the shoulder area, I went down by 0.75 inches just like this. So we connect it to the neckline area with a straight ruler. Now for the depth, I'll be making use of 1 inches for my neckline, and I'll just use my curve ruler to connect it straight down just like this. Next, I'll be taking my waist measurement. Now take note, like I said earlier, my waist measurement is 14.5 inches. The front waist measurement, I mean the length, or let's say half length. Okay, my half length measurement for the front is 16 inches and the half length measurement for the back is 14.5 inches. That's difference of 1.5 inches which we used for the side darts. On your front panel, you are going to measure what you have from your waist down to your blouse length. I will then make use of that same measurement for the back. Please take note of this. Okay, this is going to make you to have the same length with the front and the back. So after that is done, I'll just use my ruler to make a straight line just like this, and I'll go ahead to label it as well. So to create our armhole curve, on the shoulder area, I'm going to go down by 7.5 inches. That's our chest line. Remember, I said we get that by dividing our bust by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So I'll use my ruler to connect it down just like this. Now to create our armhole curve, I will divide what I have on this line by 2. I'll go out by 1/2 inch just like this, and I'll connect it like this with my ruler. Then next, I'll take my bust measurement to have our complete armhole. That's 9 inches, and then I'll curve it out just like this. Now for the back dart, on the waist area, I'm going to mark 3.75 inches. That is our nipple to nipple divided by 2. And then I'll go ahead to measure our shoulder to nipple, which is 9.5 inches. And then on the blouse length, I'll go up by 1.5 inches. On each point there, I'm going to make a straight line just like this, okay? That's going to be the length of our dart. Now on the waist area, I'll mark 1/2 inches on both sides, and I'll connect it to each point just like this. So next, our body measurement, I've marked out our bust already, so I'll go ahead to add 1.5 inches to it and mark that out. On the waist, I'll mark my measurement 7 inches plus the dart allowance 1 inches plus the sewing allowance 1.5 inches. And on the blouse length, we are going to go in and mark our hips, which is 9.5 inches plus sewing allowance 1.5 inches. So I'll just go ahead to connect all the points together just like this. Just like we did for the front, to go up by 1 inches at the blouse length area, and then I'll just connect it together just like this. So here is what we have for the back panel. Now, one important thing is trying to reduce bulge at the waist area or at the half length area of your blouse, okay? You go in by 1/2 inches like this at the waist area, and then create another line just like this, okay? That way your blouse will be sitting perfectly at the back of your dress without any bulge whatsoever. So while sewing your zip, make sure that you use 2 inches or 1.5 inches allowance, just like what you have done. Now this is the front panel and the back panel together. You can see what we have, okay? We have the same thing at the area just like this, so they align together. So that's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye for now.